Hey guys, I'm Sebastian here again. So today I'm going to be breaking down the Scotch opening, as you guys saw in the thumbnail. So let's quit this dilly-dallying and let's get into the video. The Scotch is after e4, e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, and d4. After d4, you might get the move e takes d4 and knight takes d4. At a very low level, the common move that you see is knight takes d4. Just recapturing in the center, you get queen takes d4, d6, knight to c3, knight to f6, just f3, bishop to e7, bishop to e3, short castles and long castles. The reason why I'm just zooming over this is because it might be a common line, but at the same time it's not very good, and there's no point in really paying that much attention to it. It's very easy to convert into a win. Here you might get, now here, after e takes d4, knight takes d4, not knight takes d4, sorry. You might get bishop to c5 attacking your knight. You play knight to b3, you attack back, you counterattack the bishop. After bishop to b6, you just play knight to c3, preventing the check and putting some defense on the e4 pawn. Here you might get queen to f6. This is known as the common line. You might get queen to e2, defending mate. Knight to e7, bishop to e3. You want this trade to occur. Short castles, long castles. d6, bishop takes a6, a takes b6, not a3, sorry, and king to b1. The idea of king to b1 is just you're defending these three pawns. It's always a useful move. You're getting off this diagonal. You're just winning here. So let's move on. So here you might get not takes, but d6. Here you just play d5 after a move like knight to e7. You play c4. You reinforce. After knight to f6, attacking the e4 pawn, you play knight to c3. Here you might get knight to g6, and you play h4. After h4, going for h5, you might get bishop to g4, preventing h5 and putting a pin on this knight. Here you play bishop to e2, and you might get the move c6. And remember, all these are hypothetical positions. Here, they want you to take. They want to give you what I consider a pawn canyon, which are two pawns on the same rank, without a pawn on the file in between them. Here it's the e and the c pawn without d pawn. So instead, after c6, I want you to play bishop to e3. Do not worry about captures. You might say they have e4. Well, actually here you just trade this. And you might say, well, queen to e7 is good, right? You defend it. Knight to d4. Well, what about knight to f4? Just queen to d1. I'm fine. Well, what about knight takes g2 check? King to f1. Knight back to f4 maybe. What about that? Well, actually here you just have bishop takes f6. If they take with this, they lose this pawn. If they take like this, they lose this pawn anyway. Like this, like this. Like this, like this. No matter what, you're fine. Well, not even like that, actually. Here, you want to play this. Attack this. Queen here, you can just play something like queen to d4, queen to d2, queen to d2, you attack the knight. Knight to g6. You could play this. But in reality, you want to play this. Go for this. For something like knight to f6 check and winning the queen. King to d8. It's a common line. But let's go bishop to e3, and after bishop to e7, you play g3. Sorry, bishop to e7 and g3. After h5, you play knight to d2, bishop takes e2, queen takes e2. After queen to d7, you play long castles, and you are winning. Let's move on. So after this, you get e takes d4, knight takes d4. You might get the move bishop to b4 check, known as the Malinouk position. So the Malinouk variation. After c3, bishop to b5, bishop to c5, you get bishop to e3. What you hope for is something like this. But instead you generally after bishop to e3 get bishop to b6, knight to f5, g6 attacking this. You want this trade, but instead you play bishop takes a6, a takes b6, knight to e3, knight to f6, f3 defending this pawn. Short castles in c4. Generally, middle game play goes something like rook to e8, knight to c3, d6, something like bishop to e2, bishop to e6, short castles, queen to e7, and knight d to e5. Here you generally get something like this. And you're fine here. Let me stretch and we will go on to the next line. I've totally not recorded this video like 11 times. Okay. So after d4, you get e takes d4, knight takes d4. Now you get the Steinitz line, queen to h4. Now here you play knight to c3, bishop to b4, putting a pin. Now here you cannot defend this pawn. So I want you to play the move bishop to e2. After queen takes e4, play knight to b5, utilizing the weakness on c7. After this, do not replace, take. After king to d8, you short castle. Now some people may say, well, what about after b takes c3? What if they play like something like this? King to f8, well, you're actually fine, because you just play knight takes c7, after rook b8, something like this, and just, you're fine. Here you have moves like this, you can play this, you can short castle, not short castle now, but you can short castle later. You could even play here. If you wanted to, you can play bishop to f4. These are very good moves. Okay, so let's move on. Now after d4, e takes d4, knight takes d4, this. This all looks familiar. You might get d6. Here you play queen to e2, knight to g to e7, bishop to e3, short castles, long castles, and f5 right here. After f5, just take. You might get bishop takes f5. You just take and play something like a3. Now let's move on. As I said, as the tile says, it's probably, I don't even know what the tile's gonna be. It's probably gonna be something like the short and sweet Scotch, or maybe not that. That actually sounds horrible. Something like I don't know. Probably actually, yeah, the short and sweet guide to the Scotch. But let's quit that dilly dallying. E takes d4, knight takes d4, bishop to c5, knight to b3, bishop to b6, knight to c3, d6, and queen to e2. Okay. Knight to f6, bishop to e3, bishop to e6, long castles, queen to e7, g3. Now here you might get long castles, takes, and bishop to g2 in this position, just activating down this diagonal. Something you're going to commonly see in the Scotch is long castling. So after d4, e takes d4, knight takes d4, bishop to c5, here, you play bishop to g5, wait, they're saying that you play bishop to g5, h6, bishop to h4, short castles. So a little warning, by the way, if you got this far into the video, this is your little reward for staying this late into the video. The Scotch is generally refuted by the computer, so do not feel bad if you get a losing position from the computer. You're not really losing, it's just the computer being just computer doing computer things. You probably do radio. E takes d4, knight takes d4. After knight to f6, knight to c3, we get the line I struggle with the most, bishop to b4, putting a pin. Here you just play knight takes c6, after b takes c6, bishop to g5, putting a pin on this knight. Like this. H4, sorry, h6, attacking your bishop, you just play bishop to h4. After short castles, you play bishop to d3. After rook to e8, you short castle. After something like that, oh, not that, that's horrible, mouse slip. You're okay, you're winning. You're completely fine, this cannot move. You might be arguing, well, what about g5? Bishop to g3, and knight takes e4. Isn't this not good for white? Actually, no, it's pretty alright for white, just because the fact that black is so overextended with its pawns, it has very weak squares around its king that you can very easily exploit. Something maybe like queen here's good moves. I can't draw an arrow, maybe if I change color. Nope. Okay, so yeah, thank you guys for watching this video. So yeah, this is the final line. Thank you guys for watching the video. I know it seemed a little bit rushed. You need to realize I am very tired right now. But yeah, if you got this far, thank you for watching. And yeah, go play the Scotch.